Yo, what's up, everyone? It's your boy, Ultimate Gaming Jr., and today we're going to be doing an analysis and theories video on one of my most hyped Five Nights at Freddy's fan games of all time, Five Nights at Candy's 4. So let's get into it. The Five Nights at Candy's series has always been one of my favorite game series of all time. I'm a huge fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, but the Five Nights at Candy's series is one of my favorite fan game series of all time, not including just Five Nights at Freddy's fan games. Many fans of the series, including myself, have been waiting many years for the fourth and final installment of the franchise. Let's go over the brief history of the Five Nights at Candy's series, analyze the teasers and announcements, and finally, I'll be sharing some of my theories on what the game might be about. If you don't know already, Five Nights at Candy's is an indie horror series based off of Five Nights at Freddy's, made by Emil Mako and released on July 18, 2015, and it quickly amassed a huge following. Not just because the game was being covered by popular YouTubers at the time and riding the hype train of Five Nights at Freddy's and a lot of other Five Nights at Freddy's fan games, but it was one of the first fnaf fan games to almost completely match the style and refinement of Scott's work. Emil released the second game on February 28, 2016. It was still extremely popular, but hated by many of the fans due to its repetitive gameplay and slightly less refinement than the first installment. It, however, makes up for that by focusing more on lore building in the form of 8-bit minigames. Emil decided to make it right by the fan base and released Five Nights at Candy's 3 on March 5th, 2017. Five Nights at Candy's 3 is regarded by most FNAF fans to be one of the best fan games of all time. I happen to agree with it. Five Nights at Candy's 3 is an excellent game. Five Nights at Candy's 3 also brings the story to an end by explaining the lore behind the rat and the cat, who are pretty much the Fredbear and Spring Bonnie of Five Nights at Candy's, and Mary Schmidt, the main character you play as in Five Nights at Candy's 1 and Five Nights at Candy's 3. In Five Nights at Candy's 2, you play as her daughter. I'll be doing a separate, more in-depth video on the first 3 games at another time. However, Emil wasn't done with the series. After Five Nights at Candy's 3 released, fans begged Emil to make one more game. Emil wanted to move on to make other non-FNAF related games and some horror games. If you remember Project Opia, I'll be doing a separate video on that. Emil wanted to move on to making other non-FNAF related games, but he was drawn back in and decided to work on a 4th installment. There were still many unanswered questions in the series that the 4th game could build off of. Around December of 2017, Emil started the development of the game, at first just by testing out new mechanics he had ideas for, and the game eventually grew from there. Emil then decided to make this another Five Nights at Candy's game, but didn't want to make any formal announcements because he didn't want to let any fans down if he decided to stop working on it and cancel it. On April Fool's Day 2018, Emil published a video called Where's fnaf 4, where Emil features comments from Five Nights at Candy's fans asking where the 4th game is. At the end, Emil explains that Five Nights at Candy's 4 will never be made because Five Nights at Candy's 3 ended the story the best way. In the background, however, at the end of the video, we could see our first image of Forgotten Candy as a silhouette, and then the text April Fools comes in at the end, and a question mark appears at the last possible second. This started to build hype for the game, and Emil decided to begin development of the game. In June 2018, Emil posted a picture of a puzzle, and after solving it, would lead you to a link to a video called Transmission. The video shows a hallway with Forgotten Candy getting closer and closer to the camera, along with text explaining what our character's job is for the game. I'll explain more when I discuss some theories about what I think Five Nights at Candy's 4 will be about. In September of 2018, Emil posted on Reddit officially announcing the development of Five Nights at Candy's 4. He explains that the game is going to be completely different from the old Five Nights at Candy's games in terms of design and mechanics. Five Nights at Candy's 4 is going to be developed using ClickTeam and is a free roam point and click. features mini-games and multiple paths and Easter eggs that offer replayability, and advanced graphics using Blender cycles and the largest cast of animatronics, featuring characters from past Five Nights at Candy's games and completely brand new ones. Emil also explains that the game's story will focus on Robotics Corp. On February 8th, 2019, Emil made a live stream with Kane Carter where he played some games from the fan games at Fredit's Game Jam. At approximately 5 hours and 21 minutes into the stream, Emil reveals one of the locations shown in Five Nights at Candy's 4. In August 2019, Five Nights at Candy's remastered to a huge success. Interestingly enough, if you beat Five Nights at Candy's remastered Night 8 with Shadow Candy, you'll be shown a cutscene with Forgotten Candy and who's supposedly his creator. The creator explains that he feels like he's going insane. Nothing works for him. He also explains that he wants to finish Candy to make him perfect and ends his recording to go to sleep. Forgotten Candy then activates soon after. In August 2020, after Five Nights at Candy's 4 was revealed to be in the Fazbear Fanverse, Emil published a new teaser with Forgotten Candy and mini Candy animatronics. I believe at this point, Emil decided to start at square one again, because it seemed like he was pretty far into development back in 2019 and probably wanted to make the game much better now since he had Scott's backing. In February of 2022, Emil posted another update saying that the game's development had been going strong, but very slow, but progress was still being made. On April 1st, 2022, Emil posted a video that reveals Forgotten Candy's endoskeleton and some music to be featured in the game. It was later revealed to be a teaser for fnaf, a platform game Emil is developing, but Emil later revealed that fnaf is no way connected to Five Nights at Candy's 4 and is its own separate game. Themes seemed quiet with a few small updates from Emil here and there on Twitter, but in late February 2025, Emil made a Game Jolt announcement saying that Five Nights at Candy's 4 is making slow but good progress, and we could expect a 2026 release date for the game. It also showed a Mario Kart-inspired minigame to be featured in Five Nights at Candy's 4. As of April 1st, 2025, these are all the current updates and announcements for the game. So let's get into some theories I've come up with for Five Nights at Candy's 4. First is, when does the game take place? All FNAF fans know that FNAF 1 takes place in November 1987, directly following the events of FNAF 2. Five Nights at Candy's 2 takes place in 2007 and acts as the end of the Candy's timeline. FNAF 3 is the earliest in the timeline, with the minigames taking place in 1962 and the night scenes in 1963. I believe that Five Nights at Candy's 4 will take place in 1993 because of many important pieces of evidence hidden throughout the series. We all know that Five Nights at Candy's 4 will take place at Robotics Corp, so that leads us to the time between 1962 and when the factory opened, and 2007 when the factory burned down at the end of Five Nights at Candy's 2. In FNAF Remastered, after beating Night 8, we unlock Cam 13, where we see a poster of Forgotten Candy. This shows that he must have been created around the time of 1987, when Five Nights at Candy's 1 takes place. Despite that, I believe Five Nights at Candy's 4 will take place in 1993. If you notice the end of the new Five Nights at Candy's 2 newspaper that announces the demolition of the factory, it explains that another incident occurred at the factory leading to its closure, along with the possible closure of Candy the Cat Entertainment. It's possible that the canon ending of Five Nights at Candy's 4 will lead to our character being killed by Forgotten Candy in the factory, and the Candy's restaurant and factory being shut down because of it. People will argue that Five Nights at Candy's 4 will take place before 1987 because of the Forgotten Candy poster, but I believe it's after because Candy's name is Forgotten Candy. This will lead to my next theory. Why is Candy forgotten? I believe that the engineer that created Forgotten Candy is possibly the man with the mustache that is seen in many of the Five Nights at Candy's 2 minigames. He's always been someone who stood out to me in the game. He's existed since the Rat and Cat Theater reopened in 1963. He is shown in the minigame where Mary Schmidt's brother is attacked by the rat, but he's also spotted around Candy's in the 70s and 80s through some of the Five Nights at Candy's 2 minigames that take place in the 70s and 80s. He must seem to be the owner of Candy's or someone higher up in the chain of command. We also know that Candy has a strong relationship with Robotics Corp in the factory and Candy's. Since both have covered each other's asses when incidents have occurred, either at the factory or at Candy's. I believe that Forgotten Candy was part of a new line of animatronics to be used in a restaurant or attraction with advanced features that made the characters dangerous. I feel like this guy had some involvement with the creation of these animatronics. I also feel like that's who's messaging us in the transmission video. This leads to my final theory, like what are the events that will take place in Five Nights at Candy's 4. I feel like we play as the phone guy from Candy's 1 being tasked with the jobs by the owners of Candy's or the owners of Robotics Corp to get into the factory and restore the animatronics for a new Candy's location. It's possible after the events of Five Nights at Candy's 2 that Candy's struggled to maintain a good image, and that's why the version 2 animatronics were created in 1993. However, the location would have continued to struggle, and the owners of CTC Entertainment would want us to restore the more advanced animatronics to be used in a new location. Like I said before, our character probably dies at the end, and this leads to the closure of Robotics Corp and Candy's in the abandonment of their animatronics in the factory. Although it's not 100% confirmed that who we play as is the phone guy from Five Nights at Candy's 1, I feel like it would be more interesting if that's who we played as. And although it's not confirmed who is messaging us, I still feel like it would be more interesting if it was this guy with the mustache who seems to appear everywhere in the Five Nights at Candy series, is behind everything that happens in the entire series. And that concludes my Five Nights at Candy's video of everything so far. I'll try to keep everyone updated if new information comes out about the game, because this is something I'm sure everybody's interested to hear about updates, as updates aren't frequently shared by Emil that much, so it's best to keep an eye out for things. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts about Five Nights at Candy's 4. Or if you'd like to request something else you would like me to see do an analysis and theories video on. Peace out.